Commander Jake Morrison walked slowly through the cold metal hallways of the abandoned space station. His boots made soft sounds on the floor as he moved deeper into the strange building. The Terra Nova, his exploration ship, was docked outside. In the empty space around the planet Kepler 442b, Jake had been exploring space for 15 years, but he had never seen anything quite like this place. The station was huge, much bigger than any human building in space. The walls were made of a dark metal that seemed to absorb light. Strange symbols covered every surface, glowing with a soft blue light that hurt to look at directly. The air was thick and heavy, filled with a smell that reminded Jake of old machines. And something else he could not identify. Dr. Lisa Parker followed behind him, carrying her scanner in both hands. She was the best science officer in the Earth fleet, and Jake trusted her completely. Her scanner beeped softly as she pointed it at the walls and floor. "The readings are very strange, Commander," Lisa said in a quiet voice. "This place is old, maybe thousands of years old, but some of the technology is still working." Jake stopped walking and turned to look at her. What kind of technology? Power systems, life support, and something else. Something big in the center of the station. Lisa looked at her scanner again. Whatever it is using a lot of power. Lieutenant Alex Chun caught up with them, breathing hard. He was young and new to space exploration, but he was very good with languages and computers. "Commander, I have been working on the symbols we found near the entrance. I think I can read some of them." "What do they say?" Jake asked. Alex looked nervous. "They are not good words, sir. They talk about collecting and storing, and they mention something called inventory." Jake felt cold despite the warm air in the station. "Show me." They walked together to the center of the station. The hallway opened into a massive room that was so big Jake could not see the far wall. The ceiling disappeared into darkness above them. But what filled the room made Jake's stomach turn. Hundreds of metal containers lined the walls and floor. Each container was about the size of a human coffin, but they were not for dead people. Soft lights glowed from inside each one, and Jake could see shapes moving in a thick liquid that filled them. "My God," Lisa whispered. "Jake, these are not storage containers. They are life support systems." Jake moved closer to one of the containers. The liquid inside was clear, but it had a green tint to it. Through the liquid, he could see a creature that looked almost human, but not quite. Its skin was blue and covered with scales. Its eyes were closed, but it was breathing. "It is alive," Jake said. Lisa ran her scanner over the container. "Not just alive, Commander. It is in some kind of suspended sleep. The system is keeping it alive, but not letting it wake up." Alex was working at a computer terminal near the containers. "Commander, I am reading more of the symbols. This is definitely an inventory system. It lists different types of creatures from different planets." Jake felt his heart beating faster. "What kinds of creatures?" "All kinds, sir. The computer has files on dozens of different species." And Commander ... Alex's voice became very quiet. "Some of the files are about humans." The room became very quiet. Jake could hear only the soft humming of the machines keeping the creatures alive. He walked to another container and looked inside. This one held a creature with 6 arms and green skin. The next container held something that looked like a giant insect, but it had a face that showed intelligence. "How many containers are there?" Jake asked. Lisa was checking her scanner. "I count over 300 in this room alone. And Commander, my readings show there are at least 5 more rooms like this one in the station." Jake felt sick. "So there could be thousands of these things." "They are not things, sir," Alex said softly. "According to the computer files, they are all intelligent beings. They all come from different planets, different star systems. And they are all being kept here for the same reason: Which is? Alex swallowed hard before answering. To be sold. The words hit Jake like a physical blow. He had heard rumors of alien slave traders, but most people thought they were just stories. Now he was looking at the proof that it was all real. Lisa, can you tell how long they have been? Here? Lisa moved between the containers, scanning each one. The dates are different for each container. Some of these creatures have been here for years. Others are more recent. She stopped at one container, and her face went white. Jake, you need to see this. Jake hurried over to where Lisa was standing. The container she was scanning held a human woman. She had brown hair and was wearing clothes that Jake recognized as Earth military uniform. But the uniform was old style, from maybe 20 years ago. The computer file says her name is Captain Betty Rogers, Alex said, reading from the terminal. She was captured during a deep space mission in 2305. She has been here for 18 years. Jake stared at the sleeping woman. 18 years in this place, kept alive but not awake, waiting to be sold like a piece of equipment. He felt anger building inside him, hot and strong. Are there others? He asked. Alex typed on the computer. Terminal. Yes, sir. 12 humans total in this facility. All of them taken from Earth ships over the past 20 years. All of them listed as high-value merchandise. Jake closed his eyes and took a deep breath. When he opened them again, his voice was steady and calm. Lisa, I want you to scan everything in this place. Every container, every computer, every piece of technology. I want to know exactly what we are dealing with. Yes, sir. Alex, download everything you can from their computers. I want to know who is running this operation and where they are. Already working on it, Commander. Jake walked back to the center of the room and looked around at all the containers. Hundreds of intelligent beings stolen from their homes and families kept like animals waiting to be sold. And somewhere out there, the creatures who had done this were still operating, still stealing people from their planets. Commander, Alex called out, I found something important in the computer files. This is not the only place like this. There are dozens of these stations scattered across the galaxy, and they are all run by the same group. What group? They call themselves the Consortium. According to these files, they have been doing this for thousands of years. They find planets with intelligent life, study them, and then start taking people. Jake felt the anger growing stronger. What about Earth? Are we on their list? Alex was quiet for a moment as he read the files. Yes, sir. Earth is scheduled for what they call a major harvest operation. It is planned to begin in 5 years. The room became silent again. Jake realized that they had stumbled onto something much bigger than an abandoned space station. They had found evidence of a threat to all of humanity. How many ships do they have? Jake asked. Hundreds, sir. Maybe thousands. They are much more advanced than us. Jake nodded slowly. The situation was worse than he had imagined. But he also felt something else growing inside him alongside the anger. Determination. These creatures had made a mistake when they decided to target humanity. They had no idea what they were dealing with. Lisa, how long do you need to finish your scans? Another hour, maybe 2. Alex, can you download all their files in that time? I think so, sir. Jake walked to the entrance of the room and looked back at all the containers. Then we get this information back to Earth as fast as possible. Command needs to know what is coming. As he stood there, Jake heard a sound that made his blood freeze. It was the sound of ship engines coming from outside the station. He ran to the nearest window and looked out into space. 3 large ships were approaching the station. They were unlike any human ships Jake had ever seen. They were black and angular, with strange lights along their sides. And they were moving fast. Lisa, Alex, We need to leave now, Jake said urgently. We have company. The slavers were coming home. The Terra Nova raced through space at maximum speed, carrying the terrible evidence from the slave station. Commander Jake Morrison sat in his command chair, watching the stars streak past the window. His hands were shaking slightly, not from fear but from anger. The images of those sleeping prisoners would not leave his mind. Dr. Lisa Parker worked at her station, organizing all the data they had collected. Her scanner had recorded everything about the alien containers and the creatures inside them. Alex Chan sat nearby, still downloading files from the alien computers onto human storage devices. Every few minutes, he would stop and stare at the screen, his face growing more worried. How much longer until we reach Earth? Jake asked. 6 hours at this speed, his pilot answered. But Commander, we are pushing the engines very hard. We might have problems. Keep pushing them. This information cannot wait. When the Terra Nova finally reached Earth, Jake did not waste any time. He sent an emergency message to Admiral Patricia Wells, the head of Earth's Space Forces. Within 2 hours, Jake found himself standing in a large meeting room in the capital city of New Geneva. The room was filled with the most important people on Earth. Admiral Wells was a tall woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had been fighting in space for 30 years, and everyone respected her. Next to her sat Dr. Robert Kane, Earth's best scientist for studying alien life. Around the table were generals, politicians, and other important people who made decisions for all of humanity. Commander Morrison, Admiral Wells said, your message said this was a matter of extreme importance. Please tell us what you found. Jake stood up and activated the large screen at the front of the room. Images from the slave station appeared, showing the metal containers and the creatures sleeping inside them. A room became very quiet. We found this station orbiting the planet Kepler 442b, Jake began. At first, we thought it was abandoned, but what we discovered inside changed everything. He showed them pictures of the sleeping creatures, the computer files, and the human prisoners. When the image of Captain Betty Rogers appeared on the screen, several people in the room made sounds of shock. These are not storage facilities, Jake continued. They are slave markets. The creatures who built this place have been stealing intelligent beings from across the galaxy for thousands of years. And Earth is their next target. Dr. Kane leaned forward in his chair. Commander, are you certain about this? The implications are enormous. Dr. Parker's scans confirmed everything. Lieutenant Chun was able to translate their computer files. They call themselves the Consortium, and they have been planning to harvest humans for years. Admiral Wells stood up and walked to the screen. She stared at the image of the sleeping human woman. How many of our people are in their hands? 12 that we found at this station. But according to their files, there are dozens of these stations across the galaxy. There could be hundreds of humans being held prisoner. The room erupted in angry voices. Politicians shouted questions, and generals demanded to know why they had not been warned. Admiral Wells raised her hand for silence. What else did you learn about this consortium? She asked. Alex Chun had been quiet during the meeting, but now he stood up. Admiral, I spent 3 days reading their files. The consortium is much larger than we thought possible. They have thousands of ships and control many star systems. They see intelligent species as nothing more than resources to be collected and sold. What makes them so successful? Dr. Kane asked. They are patient, Alex answered. They study a species for decades before they act. They learn about the culture, the technology, the military capabilities. Then they strike when the species is not ready. Jake stepped forward. According to their files, they have been watching Earth for 40 years. They know about our ships, our weapons, our defenses. They have been waiting for us to develop better space travel technology because that makes us more valuable as slaves. An old general named Marcus Thompson spoke up. What kind of military force do they have? Much larger than ours, Jake answered honestly. Their technology is more advanced. Their ships are bigger and faster. In a direct fight, we would lose badly. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. Earth faced an enemy that was stronger, more advanced, and had been preparing for this fight for decades. Admiral Wells walked back to her chair, but did not sit down. When are they planning to attack? 5 years, Alex said quietly. They call it a major harvest operation. They plan to take millions of humans in the first wave. Dr. Kane was looking at the alien technology on the screen. Commander, were you able to bring back any of their equipment for study? Some small pieces, Lisa Parker answered. But most of their technology is too advanced for us to understand quickly. What about the creatures in the containers? Dr. Kane asked. Were any of them awake? No, sir. They are all in a deep sleep. But their life signs show they are healthy and could be awakened. Admiral Wells finally sat down and looked around the room. Ladies and gentlemen, we face the greatest threat in human history. We have 5 years to prepare for an enemy that has never been defeated. We need to make some hard decisions, and we need to make them quickly. General Thompson leaned forward. What are our options, Admiral? We could try to hide. Move our colonies to remote systems and hope the consortium does not find us. That will not work, Jake said. Their files show they have been tracking our expansion for years. They know where all our colonies are. We could try to negotiate, suggested one of the politicians. With slave traders? Admiral Wells asked coldly. What would we offer them? Half of our population in exchange for leaving. The other half alone? Dr. Kane had been thinking quietly. There might be another option. The consortium has been successful because no species has ever fought back effectively. They expect their victims to be afraid and confused. But we have something they do not expect. What is that? Admiral Wells asked. We know they are coming. We have 5 years to prepare. And we have something else that might be important. Dr. Kane activated his own computer and showed a new image on the screen. The creatures in those containers represent dozens of different species. If we could wake them up and send them home, we might have allies. Jake felt a spark of hope. You mean other species that hate the consortium as much as we do? Exactly. The consortium has made enemies across the galaxy. But those enemies have never been able to work together because they did not know about each other. Admiral Wells was nodding slowly. An alliance of former victims. It could work. General Thompson stood up. Admiral, I think we need to look at this differently. The consortium thinks we are just another species to be harvested. They do not know what humans are capable of when we fight for our survival. What? Do you mean? I mean, we do not just defend ourselves. We go on the attack. We rescue every prisoner they have ever taken. We shut down every slave station they operate. We make them pay for every human life they have stolen. The room was quiet as everyone thought about this idea. It was dangerous and ambitious. But it was also something the consortium would never expect. Admiral Wells looked around the room at all the faces. Are we seriously considering going to war with an enemy that has dominated the galaxy for thousands of years? Yes, said General Thompson without hesitation. Yes, agreed Dr. Kane. Yes, said Jake Morrison, thinking of Captain Betty Rogers and all the other sleeping prisoners. One by one, everyone in the room agreed. Humanity would not wait to be harvested. They would fight back, and they would win. Admiral Wells stood up again. Then we have work to do. We have 5 years to build an army, develop new weapons, and find our allies. When the consortium comes for us, they will find something they have never encountered before. "What is that?" asked one of the younger officers. Admiral Wells smiled, but it was not a pleasant smile. "They will find humans who refuse to be slaves." The war was about to begin. 6 months after the discovery of the slave station, Earth looked like a completely different planet. Every major city had new factories working day and night to build weapons and ships. The sky was filled with construction platforms where workers built the largest fleet in human history. General Marcus Thompson stood on the observation deck of the new military headquarters, watching hundreds of ships being assembled in orbit. "How many ships will we have ready in 4 years?" Admiral Patricia Wells asked as she joined him at the window. "If we keep working at this pace, maybe 3,000, General Thompson answered. "But the consortium has tens of thousands of ships. We need something better than just more ships." In the levels below them, the best minds on Earth worked on solving that exact problem. Dr. Amanda Foster ran the Weapons Development Laboratory, where her team studied the alien technology brought back from the slave station. The work was difficult, because the consortium technology was so different from human designs. "The problem is not that their technology is better," Dr. Foster explained to her team. "The problem is that it is designed for a completely different way of thinking. They build everything to be perfect and unchanging. But that might also be their weakness." Engineer Tony Richards was working on a new type of weapon system. Unlike the consortium ships, which had fixed weapons that could not be changed, Tony's design allowed human ships to reconfigure their weapons during battle. If the enemy had strong shields, the weapons could be changed to penetrate shields. If the enemy had heavy armor, the weapons could be changed to destroy armor. "The key is flexibility," Tony explained to Admiral Wells during a demonstration. "The consortium expects us to fight the same way throughout a battle. But we can change our tactics and our weapons faster than they can adapt." Colonel Steve Martinez was working on a different kind of problem. His job was to figure out how human ground forces could fight consortium soldiers. The aliens were bigger and stronger than humans, and their weapons were more powerful. But Colonel Martinez had studied every piece of information about how the consortium fought, and he had found their weakness. "They do not improvise," he told his officers. "They follow the same battle plans that have worked for thousands of years. They expect their enemies to be afraid and to surrender quickly. They have never fought an enemy that refuses to give up." Commander Rachel Turner worked on naval strategy. Her team studied the consortium fleet movements and tactics. They learned that the aliens always used the same approach when attacking a planet. First, they would surround the planet with their ships. Then they would destroy all defenses from space. Finally, they would land their troops to capture the survivors. "We cannot let them surround Earth," Commander Turner told the War Council. "If they get into position around our planet, we lose. We have to meet them in space, far from Earth, and we have to hit them before they can organize their attack." But the most important work was being done by Ambassador Helen Brooks. Her job was to contact other species that had been attacked by the consortium. Using the alien communication technology from the slave station, she sent messages across the galaxy to any species that might be willing to help humanity. The first response came from a species called the Rigelians. Their planet had been attacked by the consortium 50 years ago, and most of their people had been taken as slaves. The survivors had been hiding in asteroid fields and dead planets ever since. The message was translated by Alex Chun, who had become Earth's expert on alien languages. "They want to know if we are serious about fighting the consortium. They say many species have talked about fighting back, but none have ever actually done it." Ambassador Brooks sent a reply with video of Earth's military preparations. She showed them the new ships being built and the weapons being developed. She also sent recordings of the human prisoners found on the slave station. The Rigelian response was immediate. We will fight with you. We have ships and weapons hidden in the outer systems. We have been waiting for someone brave enough to lead the fight. More responses came from other species. The Altarians had lost their home world to the Consortium, but had managed to save their technology and knowledge. The Centaurians had been fighting a guerrilla war against Consortium outposts for decades. The Vegan Coalition controlled several star systems that the Consortium had not yet attacked. Within a year, Ambassador Brooks had organized the first Galactic Liberation Alliance. 23 different species agreed to work together to fight the Consortium. For the first time in galactic history, the enemies of the Consortium were talking to each other. Dr. Robert Kane worked with alien scientists to share technology and knowledge. The Altarians had developed better shield technology. The Regellians had weapons that could disable Consortium computer systems. The Centaurians knew how to build ships that could not be detected by Consortium sensors. The combination of all these technologies with human innovation gives us a real chance, Dr. Kane reported to Admiral Wells. We are not just building a bigger fleet. We are building a completely different kind of fleet that the Consortium has never seen before. Captain Danny Rodriguez commanded the first test of the new technology. His ship, the Nighthawk, was equipped with Centaurian stealth systems, Altarian shields, and human adaptive weapons. His mission was to infiltrate a small Consortium facility and rescue any prisoners held there. The mission was dangerous because it would be the first time humans had fought the Consortium directly. If it failed, the aliens would know that Earth was preparing for war. But if it succeeded, it would prove that the new technology could work against Consortium forces. Rodriguez and his team approached the Consortium facility using the stealth systems. The facility was built into a large asteroid and was heavily defended. But the Consortium sensors could not detect the Nighthawk as it moved closer. We are in position, Rodriguez reported back to Earth. Beginning infiltration now. The team used cutting tools to create an opening in the asteroid. Inside, they found another slave facility with hundreds of containers holding prisoners from many different species. But this facility was different from the abandoned station they had found before. This one was still operating with Consortium. Guards and workers moving through the corridors. Sergeant Maria Lopez led the team that would disable the facility's defenses, while Tech Officer Kyle Wright worked on freeing the prisoners. Rodriguez coordinated the mission while fighting off Consortium guards who discovered the human intrusion. The Consortium soldiers were tall and heavily armored, with weapons that fired energy beams. But they moved slowly and predictably, just as Colonel Martinez had said they would. The human soldiers were faster and more flexible, able to change their tactics as the situation developed. The alien weapons are powerful, but they take time to recharge, Lopez reported. If we keep moving and do not give them time to aim, we can beat them. Wright managed to access the facility's computer systems and began releasing the prisoners from their containers. As the aliens woke up, many of them were confused and afraid. But when they saw humans fighting the Consortium guards, they understood what was happening. Some of the freed prisoners were able to help in the battle. A group of Regellian soldiers who had been captured months earlier knew the layout of the facility and helped the humans navigate through the complex. A team of Altarian engineers disabled the facility's power systems, making it harder for the Consortium to coordinate their defense. The battle lasted 6 hours, but eventually the humans and their allies took control of the facility. Over 400 prisoners were freed, including 23 humans who had been captured over the past several years. The facility was completely destroyed to prevent the Consortium from using it again. When the Nighthawk returned to Earth, the entire planet celebrated. The mission had proved that humans could fight the Consortium and win. More importantly, it had shown that the different alien species could work together effectively. Admiral Wells called another meeting of the War Council. This success is just the beginning. We have proved that our technology works and that our alliance is strong. But we have also revealed ourselves to the consortium. They know we are coming. General Thompson nodded. Intelligence reports show increased consortium activity in our sector. They are moving ships and resources to counter our threat. The timeline has changed. What do you mean? Admiral Wells asked. They are not going to wait 5 years to attack Earth. They are coming now. The alarm screamed across every human colony and military base in the galaxy. Long-range sensors had detected the largest fleet movement in recorded history. The consortium was coming, and they were bringing everything they had. Admiral Patricia. Wells stood in the command center of the new military station orbiting Earth. Around her, hundreds of officers worked at computer terminals, coordinating the defense of humanity. The main screen showed a tactical display of the surrounding star systems, with red dots marking the approaching consortium forces. How many ships? Admiral Wells asked. Over 15,000 confirmed. Captain Bruce Williams answered from his position at the sensor station. But there could be more following behind the main fleet. General Marcus Thompson joined Admiral Wells at the center display. Our combined forces total just over 4,000 ships. We are outnumbered almost 4 to 1. What about our allies? Admiral Wells asked. The Regellian fleet is moving to meet us at the rally point near Jupiter. The Altarians are bringing their best ships from the outer colonies. Altogether, we will have about 6,000 ships when everyone arrives. Admiral Wells studied the display. Even with their allies, they would still be outnumbered more than 2 to 1. But she had learned something important during the past 2 years of preparation. Numbers were not everything in space warfare. Captain Danny Rodriguez brought his ship, the Nighthawk, into formation with the growing human fleet. His successful mission against the consortium facility had made him famous throughout the Alliance. Now he commanded a squadron of the new stealth ships that could move unseen through enemy formations. Rodriguez to fleet command, he said over the communication system. Stealth squadron ready for operations. We have 12 ships equipped with the new infiltration systems. Acknowledged, Rodriguez. Stand by for mission briefing. Colonel Steve Martinez was aboard the assault ship Warrior with 3,000 of Earth's best soldiers. His job was to lead boarding parties against consortium ships once the space battle began. He had spent months training his troops to fight in the cramped corridors of alien ships. Remember what we learned from the facility raid, Martinez told his officers. The consortium soldiers are strong and well-armed, but they are slow to adapt. Hit them fast, keep moving, and do not give them time to organize a response. Major Chris Johnson commanded one of the elite boarding units. What about the alien prisoners on their ships? Intel suggests they might have thousands of slaves aboard their larger vessels. Freeing prisoners is a secondary objective, Martinez answered. But if we can turn those slaves into allies during the battle, it could make the difference between victory and defeat. On the engineering ship Forge, Tony Richards worked with teams from 5 different alien species to make final adjustments to the human fleet's weapon systems. The new adaptive technology allowed each ship to change its weapons during battle, something the consortium had never encountered before. The key is timing, Tony explained to the weapon crews. When the consortium ships raise their shields to maximum power, we switch to penetration mode. When they lower shields to increase weapon output, we switch to explosive mode. Keep them guessing, and they cannot develop an effective counter-strategy. Dr. Amanda Foster monitored the weapon systems. From the command ship, her screens showed the status of every ship in the human fleet. All ships report weapon systems are functioning within normal parameters. The adaptive systems are ready for combat. The first contact came 18 hours before the main battle. Consortium scout ships encountered the outer edge of the human. defensive line near the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Captain Gary Miller commanded the patrol ships that made first contact with the enemy. "Contact report," Miller said over the communication system. "5 consortium ships, destroyer class, moving toward our position at high speed. Engage and report," Admiral Wells ordered. The battle was brief but intense. The consortium ships were faster and more heavily armed than the human patrol ships. But they fought exactly as Colonel Martinez had predicted. They used the same tactics that had worked for thousands of years, approaching in a straight line and firing their most powerful weapons. But Captain Miller's ships were equipped with the new adaptive systems. When the consortium ships fired their energy weapons, the human ship's shields automatically adjusted to absorb that specific type of energy. When the aliens switched to different weapons, the human shields changed again. Enemy shields are down. On 2 ships, Miller reported, switching weapons to explosive mode. The human ships fired weapons designed to create maximum damage against unshielded targets. 2 of the consortium ships exploded immediately. The remaining 3 tried to retreat, but they had never fought an enemy that could change tactics so quickly. "All enemy ships destroyed," Miller reported. "No human casualties. The adaptive systems worked perfectly." Admiral Wells felt a moment of hope. If small battles like this one continued to go in their favor, maybe the larger battle could be won as well. But the main consortium fleet was much larger and more dangerous than a few scout ships. Intelligence reports from the Rigelian allies indicated that the enemy force included over 200 heavy battleships, each one larger than anything in the human fleet. "They are not just coming to capture Earth," Ambassador Helen Brooks reported from her position with the diplomatic team. "Intercepted communications suggest they plan to make an example of humanity. They want to show other species what happens when someone fights back against the consortium." Dr. Robert Kane had been studying the intelligence reports on consortium battle tactics. "There is something important we need to understand. The consortium has never fought a defensive battle. For thousands of years, they have always been the attackers. They might not know how to respond when we take the fight to them." Admiral Wells called a meeting of all senior commanders. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have one advantage the consortium does not expect. They think we will wait here at Earth and try to defend our planet. Instead, we are going to meet them halfway and attack first." Captain Bruce Williams looked at the tactical display. "Admiral, our intelligence shows they are approaching in a standard invasion formation. Their strongest ships are in the center, with support vessels protecting the flanks. If we hit them while they are still in formation, we might be able to disrupt their entire attack plan." Commander Rachel Turner had spent months studying consortium fleet movements. The formation they are using assumes the enemy will try to defend a fixed position. They have never encountered an enemy that attacks them directly during their approach phase. "What do you recommend?" Admiral Wells asked. "A 3-phase attack," Commander Turner answered. "First, Rodriguez's stealth ships infiltrate their formation and target their command vessels. Second, our main fleet attacks their strongest ships before they can reorganize. Third, boarding parties capture their larger ships and free any prisoners they find." General Thompson nodded approvingly. "It is aggressive and risky, but it gives us the best chance of victory." Admiral Wells looked around the room at all the officers who would lead humanity into its greatest battle. "Are we all agreed? We attack the consortium fleet before it reaches Earth." Every officer in the room agreed. The plan was dangerous, but it was also something the consortium would never expect. The human fleet began moving toward the approaching enemy forces. Behind them, Earth continued its preparations for war. If the fleet failed, the planet would have to defend itself with orbital weapons and ground forces. But everyone knew that if the fleet lost in space, Earth would not be able to hold out for long. Captain Rodriguez led his stealth ships ahead of the main fleet. Their mission was the most dangerous of all. They had to get close enough to the consortium command ships to plant special devices that would disrupt the enemy's communications and coordination. Stealth squadron approaching enemy formation. Rodriguez reported, beginning infiltration run. The battle for Earth was about to begin, and humanity was taking the fight directly to an enemy that had never known defeat. Captain Danny Rodriguez flew his ship deeper into the massive consortium fleet. Around him, thousands of enemy ships moved in perfect formation toward Earth. The stealth systems kept his squadron hidden, but Rodriguez knew they were flying into the most dangerous mission in human history. Target the command ship in the center, Rodriguez whispered into his communication system. That is where their fleet commanders are located. The consortium command ship was enormous, larger than any human city. It was surrounded by hundreds of smaller ships that served as escorts and support vessels. Getting close enough to plant the disruption devices would require flying through all of those defenses. Lieutenant Susan Clark piloted the ship next to Rodriguez. Danny, I am reading massive energy signatures from that command ship. Their weapons could destroy our entire squadron with one shot. That is why we have to be invisible, Rodriguez answered. Remember, they do not know you're here. The stealth ships moved carefully through the enemy formation. The consortium vessels were so large and numerous that it took almost an hour to reach the command ship. When they finally got close enough, Rodriguez could see the alien structure. In detail, the ship was built like a floating city, with towers and platforms extending in all directions. Strange lights moved across its surface, and Rodriguez could see thousands of small ships docking and launching from various ports. This was not just a warship. It was the mobile capital of the consortium's slave empire. Begin planting the devices, Rodriguez ordered. His team attached small machines to the hull of the command ship. These devices were designed by Tony Richards and Dr. Amanda Foster to disrupt alien computer systems. If they worked correctly, the consortium would lose the ability to coordinate their fleet during the battle. While Rodriguez's team worked on their mission, the main human fleet moved into attack position. Admiral Patricia Wells stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching as thousands of ships from Earth and its allies prepared for the largest space battle in galactic history. All ships report ready for combat, Captain Bruce Williams announced. Signal. From the Regellian fleet, another officer called out. They are in position and awaiting orders. Admiral Wells looked at the tactical display. The consortium fleet was still in its approach formation, with the strongest ships in the center and support vessels on the flanks. They had no idea that an attack was coming. This is Admiral Wells to all ships, she said over the fleet communication system. Today we fight not just for Earth, but for every intelligent being that has ever been enslaved by the consortium. Today we end their reign of terror forever. A battle began when Rodriguez's team finished planting their devices and activated them. Immediately, the consortium command ship began to experience problems. Their communication systems started failing, and the coordination between different parts of their fleet began to break down. Disruption devices are working, Rodriguez reported. The enemy command ship is having serious technical problems. Admiral Wells smiled grimly. All ships, begin attack. Target their heavy battleships first. The human fleet charged directly. At the center of the consortium formation, the enemy ships were caught completely off guard. For thousands of years, they had attacked defenseless planets and fought enemies who were afraid and disorganized. They had never faced an enemy that attacked them first with such aggression and coordination. Captain Gary Miller commanded the first wave of attack ships. His vessels were equipped with the new adaptive weapons that could change their function during combat. When the consortium ships raised their shields, Miller's ships switched to shield-penetrating weapons. When the aliens changed their defensive tactics, the human weapons changed as well. Direct hit on enemy battleship, Miller reported. Their shields are failing. The Rigelian allies attacked from a different direction, using their advanced energy. Weapons to target the consortium support ships. The Altarians used their superior speed to attack the enemy flanks, preventing the consortium from organizing a proper defensive formation. But the real surprise came when Colonel Steve Martinez led his boarding parties against the larger consortium ships. As the space battle raged around them, small human assault ships latched onto enemy vessels and cut their way inside. Major Chris Johnson led one of the first boarding teams onto a consortium slave transport. The ship was filled with thousands of prisoners from dozens of different species, all held in the same kind of suspended animation containers the humans had first discovered on the abandoned station. Release systems are the same as the ones we studied, Johnson reported over his radio. Beginning prisoner liberation now. As the human soldiers worked to free the prisoners, something unexpected happened. The freed aliens did not just escape. They joined the fight against their captors. Rigelian warriors, who had been prisoners for years, picked up weapons and helped the humans battle through the ship. Altarian engineers disabled the ship's weapons and engines from the inside. Effect spread throughout the consortium fleet as more boarding parties successfully infiltrated enemy ships. Thousands of freed slaves turned against their captors, creating chaos and confusion throughout the alien fleet. Captain Linda Davis led a boarding party onto one of the largest consortium battleships. Inside, she found not just prisoners, but also the ship's main computer system. Tech officer Kyle Wright worked to access the alien computers, while Davis and her soldiers held off enemy guards. "I am into their main database," Wright reported. "Linda, this is incredible. This computer has records of every slave operation the consortium has conducted for the past 1,000 years. Can you download it?" Davis asked while firing at approaching consortium soldiers. "Already working on it. But there is something else. This computer is connected to their entire fleet network. If I can upload our disruption virus here, it will spread to every ship in their fleet." Davis grinned as she reloaded her weapon. "Do it." The virus that Dr. Foster had developed began spreading through the consortium fleet's computer network. Ship after ship began experiencing system failures. Weapons stopped working. Shields collapsed. Communication systems failed. The perfectly organized alien fleet began to fall apart. On the command ship, the consortium leaders realized they were facing something they had never encountered before. For thousands of years, they had been the predators and other species had been their prey. But humans fought differently. Humans refused to be victims. Admiral Wells watched as the battle turned in humanity's favor. Enemy ships were surrendering or being destroyed across the entire combat zone. The consortium fleet, which had seemed invincible just hours before, was collapsing under the combined assault of humans and their allies. "Admiral," Captain Williams reported, "we are receiving surrender signals from over half the enemy fleet. The remainder are trying to retreat." "No," Admiral Wells said firmly. "Do not let any of them escape. This ends today." The pursuit lasted for 6 more hours. Human and allied ships chased down every fleeing consortium vessel. Some of the enemy ships were captured intact, along with thousands more prisoners who were immediately freed. Other ships fought to the end and were destroyed. When the battle finally ended, the space around Earth was filled with the wreckage of the consortium fleet. But it was also filled with something else. Thousands of freed prisoners from dozens of species, all celebrating their liberation. Dr. Robert Kane boarded one of the captured consortium ships to study their technology and records. What he found amazed him. "Admiral, their database contains the locations of every slave facility in the galaxy. We now know where every prison camp and processing center is located. General Thompson smiled for the first time in months. Then we know where to hit them next. Over the following weeks, human fleets spread across the galaxy, liberating slave facilities and freeing millions of imprisoned beings. Each freed species joined the growing alliance against what remained of the consortium, the empire that had enslaved countless civilizations for thousands of years, crumbled in just 3 months. The surviving consortium leaders were captured and put on trial for their crimes against every intelligent species in the galaxy. Captain Rodriguez, now promoted to admiral, stood on the observation deck of the new Galactic Liberation Council headquarters. Below him, representatives from over 100 species worked together to build a new kind of galaxy, one where slavery was impossible and freedom was protected. Jake Morrison, the commander who had first discovered the truth about the consortium, joined Rodriguez at the window. "Did you ever think it would end like this when we found that first slave station?" Rodriguez shook his head. "I thought we were going to find a way to defend Earth. I never imagined we would end up freeing the entire galaxy." "The consortium made one critical mistake," Jake said. "They chose to target humanity. They had no idea what humans do when someone tries to make us slaves." "What is that?" Rodriguez asked. Jake smiled. "We do not just fight for our own freedom. We fight for everyone's freedom. And we never stop fighting until everyone is free. The galaxy would never be the same." The age of slavery was over, ended by a species that refused to accept that any intelligent being should be owned by another. Humanity had discovered the truth about the slavers, and just as the title promised, the slavers were doomed.